Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. Today I have a returning guest. She's been on the show a bunch. We worked together on the Army Hammer documentary, which I was really proud to be a part of. And she just has one of the best TikTok accounts and is one of the best overall people that I've found doing this. And I love how her mind works because it goes kind of from topic to topic. And then she'll do these deep dives that I truly find fascinating. Now, I think she came to prominence, even though you might know her from Instagram and her podcasts and things like that. But I just fell in love with her TikTok, as so many people did. But I love when she'll kind of go over these topics or kind of pick out one piece of a story and deep dive that. And over the holidays or at the beginning of the year, you guys know I was fixated and still am to a degree, except that there's been a gag order on a lot of information in regards to the Idaho killers and Brian Koberger, who is currently been arrested awaiting trial. But there is a whole story she did on this that has stuck with me for the last couple of weeks. And I want to talk to her more about that. But I also want to talk to her about a world of other things. So let's just get right into it. You guys know her as the Zen Blonde, Lauren Skae. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me. And thanks for the intro. Can you hype me up every Monday like this before I have to get into the week?
Yeah, I could actually. I feel like that's really, I think my true gift is the intros. Everything else pales in comparison, I think, at that point.
It's all down.
How's your new year? Yeah, it's all, guys, you can tune out at this point. Go look up Lauren on her socials. You'll be fine. Wait, how has the new year been so far for you?
It's been good. I moved into a new apartment. So it's that new apartment energy, which is great. And, I did dry January. I broke it this weekend. And, it's just been
whoa. Wait. If you did dry January and you broke it this weekend, then you didn't do dry January.
I did. Actually, it's funny. There's this guy, the Prima Donald, who I am friends with.
Oh, I know. Yeah, Donald
Adler.
Yeah.
And he said he was doing dry February and January because February is a shorter month. And I had somebody visiting me. Some people might know her. It's become a whole thing, is her account. She came in from Canada and I'm like,
oh, she's been on the show. She's been on the show before.
Yeah. She's totally been on your show. So she was in from Canada and I'm like, I'm not going to be not having a cocktail when somebody's in from all the a completely different country that's so far away from us. So yeah, dry February and January.
Now, guys, that's the rudest thing. When somebody comes all the way from a different country and you won't drink with them, that is considered the height of rudeness. And you just didn't want to participate in that.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever read an Emily Post etiquette book? It's literally the first page is if you welcome a visitor from another country and don't get absolutely hammered with them, you are a very rude host. And so
wait, Countess Luann's book has a similar etiquette, I think, as well. I've never read this Emily Post, but she sounds just amazing. I like that though, because February only has 28 days in it, right? So January has 31. And I feel as the government doesn't really do tons anymore for anybody, but what it could do is it could switch February and January in terms of days. So dry January is, and also I'm done with daylight savings time. I'm done. I don't know why certain areas, we have to be depressed in Los Angeles because it's dark at 4:30. I don't see the
and honestly,
benefit
if
in
you
any
have to
of
be
that.
Depressed here, could you imagine you were in Canada? All the more reason it would be even more rude if I didn't drink with her, because she told me that it's negative 40 some days and they have to plug their car batteries in order so that the battery doesn't corrode overnight. I'm we're in the warmth and we're depressed. So imagine being in the cold,
But Canada gave us Alanis Morissette. So I think they've got so many, I think there's such a good, there's big trade-offs. They have to do that.
We were at the grocery store and the cashier was like, can you guys take Justin Bieber back, when he found out that she was from Canada. So we did get Alanis Morissette, but
I great. No, I listen, I'm a believer. I am a total believer and I will not take Justin slander. I worry about him though. Okay. So just to remind people, we were both in the Army Hammer documentary, House of Hammer, and you played a great role in that. And, you spearheaded a lot of things and a lot of conversation. And I just wanted to start there because I was watching Shotgun Wedding over the weekend, the J-Lo Amazon Prime movie with Josh Duhamel. I don't even know how to say his last name. And I didn't love it, but I still watched it. And I just remembered that I was like, oh, this is the film that Army Hammer I think it was a mutual release where they released him from Shotgun Wedding. He was supposed to be the male lead. And I just thought, wow, that was 2 years ago now that all of this kind of, a lot of it really came to light in such a big way. Has there been any updates? Have you heard any updates about Mr. Hammer and what? Because, I heard he was in LA. I heard he was living at Robert Downey Jr.'s house. This all happened. His father passed away, of course, Michael Hammer. But what else is going on? Have you heard anything?
I mean, for Army in general, a bunch of people were sending me because he was in his wife's, video in Grand Cayman at a birthday party. And I think he's probably bopping between Grand Cayman and LA, having a low profile. But one of the biggest updates was when his father passed away. So for anyone listening, there's a big museum in LA called the Hammer Museum. It's an institution. It was started by his grandfather. It's, still in the family. They have a foundation. They obviously have all this art that was passed down and like Picasso's and things like that. And so what happened after Michael Hammer, Armie Hammer's father, passed away was there was a bunch of art being taken by members of the board of the foundation. So there was like some theft going on. And like, it's just like, the plot thickens, right? Like this tangled web of like crazy rich people stuff just keeps on unfurling. And, I've heard that like, Michael Hammer is going to have a funeral in a bit. So I'm sure we'll see paparazzi photos from that, but I haven't heard anything too crazy. I definitely get people in and out of my inbox that tell me like confidential things here and there, but I haven't heard anything too crazy. What about you? You were in an acting class with him. Like, have you heard?
No, anything? I mean, we don't swap acting stories anymore, but no, it's like, I'm just curious because I was watching a video over the weekend and it was about Louis C.K. had sold out Madison Square Garden on Saturday night, which is a huge venue for even a band, let alone a comedian, to sell that out. And, there's been just so many conversations about cancel culture and canceling these, and Louis C.K. has kind of gone underground, but he's kind of still managed to hold this wide audience by going underground that really voraciously support him. And kind of, he's been able to keep going, of course, not at the height where he was in terms of being able to get TV and movie deals, but his stand-up, he went back to that full time. Now, I was just wondering, like, for Army, I'm just a student of pop culture, is like, I don't think it's a matter of if, but when will his first acting job be? Because Kevin Spacey just got hired for another movie and he was actually celebrated in Italy and just won an award.
What?
And he won. The guys in Italy, they did a film festival last month and Kevin Spacey was the guest of honor. And he literally opened his speech by thanking the people behind the festival for having the balls to give him this award.
You know what? If there's hope,
I just thought, what a weird,
like Ghislaine Maxwell is going to be like running a charity in like 10 years. Like, I have no faith in the world anymore. So, it's funny because I ask people this all the time, especially other like pop culture commentators. And I'm like, do you think?
Whoa. There's only one pop culture commentator. What are you talking about?
Bad boy of pop culture commentator.
Wait. I only ask one bad boy of podcasting.
Well, there's people that are in the shadows that are, not even visible to the world, that just, exactly. I wouldn't even call it commentating. It's they like, but yeah, like I ask people all the time because I'm curious about people's opinions. And like Luca Guadagnino already said that,
who's the director of Call Me by Your Name and the most recent Skin and Bone with Timothée Chalamet, which actually has a cannibal storyline.
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird. It's like, how has this situation informed some things that have happened in like TV and movies? Because there have been like some cannibal tropes over the past like few years after all this. And it's like, like where are they getting this inspiration from? But, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't think anyone's cancelable anymore. And I probably would have had a different answer for you when this all unfolded. I'm like, this is so horrible what he did. Like, like there's no way he'll ever act again. And I think at this point, like people come back all the time. I've had conversations with people where they'll remind me of something somebody did. And like, it was a huge deal, but like you completely forget about like awful tweets that people put out. And I'm like, oh, I forgot.
That's why I think it is important for like all of these kind of, to quote pop culture commentators, to be out there and remind people, and not just of the bad things, but of the good things too, because I'll completely forget whole TV series that I've watched. I'll be like, oh my God, that affected me so much back then, or this story. Like, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was thinking the other day of, do you guys know that Nicolas Cage and Patricia Arquette were married? Like, do you remember that? There was a whole, by the way, I was about to make a TikTok on that a year ago and I just gave up because it was like, oh, I can't do that, but it was like, and the story behind that is so fascinating because Patricia, he was like drunk one time and saw her at like Cantor's Deli in LA. And he asked her, like, will you marry me, in that Nicolas Cage intense way? And she said, I will only marry you if you procure these gifts for me. And it was like a signed copy by J.D. Salinger of A Catcher in the Rye. It was like a list of these things. And to Nicolas Cage's drunk credit, he went and procured all of those things and they got engaged. Like, isn't that insane?
You need to do a TikTok on this.
That is people crazy. Well, see, that's like those moments I had forgotten about it because I was looking through and I forgot about it even in this last year because I went back Priscilla Presley's, not Priscilla, but Lisa Marie Presley, when she unfortunately passed away, I had blanked out that she had married Nicolas Cage as well.
Nicolas Cage has been around the block. My parents live like in Vegas part-time and he goes to their like Lifetime gym. And I was living with them for a while, like a few years ago. And I was going to Lifetime and I was like ready to be like running next to Nicolas Cage on the treadmill and like we're going after the Declaration of Independence, but really we're just like running a mile.
Could you imagine Nicolas Cage just doesn't wipe down the machines at 24-hour fitness? He's just like, you wipe it. That's Nicolas Sweat Cage. Yeah.
You're lucky to be on this treadmill with my sweat. Yeah, I think it would have been really weird. But yeah, no, I mean, I don't really know what designates somebody as cancelable anymore. Like, I don't know what degree, I don't know where people have to go. Maybe they have to like kill someone. I don't know where, and even people have like killed people in like reckless driving situations and like get jobs again. So I think it's interesting from like the perspective of the people that are affected, because could you imagine somebody did something terrible to you and then you have to see them on a billboard? And like, that's where like, I really understand like why cancellation could be like a good thing for people that are affected, but it just doesn't seem to be hitting. And I'm like, there's lots of talented people who like, could like fill the slot,
Well, Lauren, speaking of that, somebody did do something horrible to me. Lisa Rinna has existed all this time, and I see her pictures everywhere. Every day I'm forced to see some kind of Lisa Rinna picture, and I can't handle it anymore.
And now she's like an AI avatar, and she's like your sleep paralysis demon.
Dude, I had Facetune on last week, and they pointed out all the AI imagery of Lisa Rinna. There's a whole account dedicated to Lisa Rinna AI, and it is really the AI stuff. I'm so curious where this goes from here. Have you been like following this, like GPT and all of this stuff?
I love it. I use it all the time.
Wait, can you explain to people what it is and how you use it? Because
no, I want to gatekeep it for my own work purposes.
No, guys, it's insane. It's really insane.
So there's this website called OpenAI, and it has a feature called Chat GPT, and I can type in like literally anything. Like anything from like, give me an outline of Anna Nicole Smith's like dating history, and it will literally write me an outline that I could use for a TikTok, which I haven't used it for TikTok purposes, but like, if I'm like, I need to do a SWOT analysis for work, like, let's like get the outline going on this, like can easily punch in like different things and get that like outline going. And it's still AI, but you can take it and it's really well written. It's great. You can take that outline and then use that for, whatever bigger thing you're going to do. So you can use it for almost anything. You can have it write a book for you. You can have it write a song for you. Like, oh my gosh, it can do everything.
This isn't joking. I put in, I was like, describe Jax Taylor from Vanderpump Rules. And it gave me this like, bartender that's a part of a popular series, Vanderpump Rules. And I said, give me that, but make it more tawdry. Like make it more. And it was like, man whore Jax Taylor. It was like, it actually followed the instruction. I mean, it wouldn't say man whore, but it said like, it used these great words. But am I correct? My nephew was trying to explain this to me, that it only goes to like this certain year and before, like it's not for 2023. Like it's 2021 and before, if that makes sense.
So even like when I've been like, oh my gosh, I don't want to like look this thing up for work, that's like this really like annoying thing to look up, like market research, I'm like, oh, okay, I can get this information here, but it goes only up till 2021 and I have no idea why. But it's really, that's the only
Well, I
annoying
think
part
that's
about it.
smart. Well, I kind of like that, Lauren, because like this technology is so powerful that I don't want it to catch up to right now. I think there does need to be guardrails on this, or almost like those bumpers that you play if you're bad at bowling, you put those bumpers on the side. Because like if it was 2023, like think about it, like kids at school wouldn't be writing their own essay, like because my nephew was like, yeah, man, like he, it's like it's kind of banned on campus or they don't let you use it. And I would like, I mean, back in high school, I would have used the shit out of this
Oh
thing
my gosh,
to
me
work
too
on
in
reports.
college. Well, the thing is, like for school, when I was in college, they had something that they could run your paper through for like plagiarism purposes.
Yeah.
But now this is like, okay, now you're having to, it's not plagiarism, it's written by AI. So now they're going to have to figure out how to discern that. And yeah, it's really crazy, but like there are so many resources for like if you want somebody to like help you. Like there's also something called Chegg where you can put in questions, and if you pay money, like you'll have like intelligent people answering for you. My senior year of college, it helped me get through psych stats homework. So you know, you have to do
This,
what you have
I
to
mean,
do.
I mean, the sky's the limit with this stuff. Sorry, I know I'm going all over the place, but I do want to also mention we had talked right before we came on, and I was asking you what you were watching or what you were liking and stuff, and you were kind of like nothing. I mean, like you were kind of saying like everything's kind of it's you're trying to get into shows and you can't get into them.
Yeah, I really haven't been like, and like, please, Bravo. Like, I'm sorry, I love you. Like, I'll see you at BravoCon. But like, I have not been loving like anything on Bravo. I tried to get in Salt Lake City. I fell off so quickly. I rely on like people like you and Dane Galley and Bravo, Ducking Bravo to like essentially give me like a synopsis of what's going on. And of course, like I peripherally know what's going on because of that. But yeah, can't get into any of it. I really need to watch Real Housewives of Miami because I've heard out of
So
everything right
good.
now, I should watch that.
Well, I love that thing. I love that point though, is that you're kind of right. Is that I watch all of these things because it's like I watch them almost just out of habit and out of my work and all of this stuff. And I've really had to try to delineate like what I'm actually enjoying and what I'm actually covering, because those two things are like vastly different. Like of watching things that you actually enjoy watching and watching these things where like, okay, I'm going to make fun of this on the show. And a lot of things is like it's good fodder to make fun of, but it's not good television. And I think this, and I want to know your point, because you were like, oh, I'm aware of everything going on because of shows or Instagram. And that's the thing too, is that I feel like Bravo especially needs to find a way to combat. It's almost like ChatGPT, where we're getting so much information before these shows even get released.
We're the
And then
robots.
yeah, well, the social media of it all is we're potentially ruining this to actually make good TV down the line. Like even this weekend, I talked about this on Monday's show, is Caroline Manzo and Brandi Glanville were filming Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip season 4 over in Morocco. And I was informed what actually, like I was told what happened over the weekend, and I didn't say exactly what it was on Monday because I'm not a spilling tea account, but all the reports got released today and people released it. But basically what happened was Brandi tried to kiss Caroline Manzo, and Caroline Manzo called it assault. And from my understanding, the Caroline wanted Brandi gone. Caroline also removed herself from the situation. But I will say also what I heard, that all the women there were fine with Brandi staying. They weren't, they were, but I mean, what sucks is like that's really gripping and could have been gripping television, and also horrifying to actually invade anybody's personal space, whether you're a guy or a girl, that it's not warranted. I don't care if you like Caroline Manzo or not, but like the fact that it's all spilled out and we know this, and the show's not even on for another year and a half, probably.
Yeah, and well, it really is such a bummer. And the thing is, like, it kind of happened with like Prince Harry's book, right? Like I was so excited to
Yeah,
read
you
Spare,
covered Spare, like you all on TikTok, you had all these great stories about Spare.
but there was only so much more for me to add to it because somebody got their hands on it, and like it all the like the major like kind of teaful points came out, and then it was like, okay, like like there's some weird things that he said, but the book, honestly, to me, love Harry, but it was like not the most entertaining book that I've ever read. Like I didn't really want to hear his description of like another castle, or to hear
Or
about
his
like
wiener.
yeah, his Toja talk. Like I'm like, if I'd hear his
Matolja.
his
Matolja.
Toja one more time, And I was like, you know what? Like there was this TikTok that was like, I would like to know like 10% less. That's how I felt. But yeah, it all got leaked before. Like, it's like, the woman's like, Harry, I'm on your side, but please, like 10% less. And I'm like, I agree. Like, please, like 10% less of the Todger talk. But yeah, oh my God. I was like, so like, I have like secondhand embarrassment about him with all of that. But yeah, I mean, all of it gets released and then it is such a bummer. And then sometimes I'm like, how much of this do they plant because they want to drum up excitement for the show? But it wouldn't make any sense for them to put any of this out now as a plant because we're not gonna be able to watch it for a year. So now it's like, also though, Caroline Manzo doesn't strike me as somebody that would want somebody to like kiss her like that. That's really weird that.
Well, no, wait. But also, Laura, but you said it exactly right there. She doesn't. And Brandy knows that. And if you guys watch Ultimate Girls Trip season 2, Brandy did the same kind of drunken shit where she was telling people she wanted to make out with them. And she was like, that was her thing. And I think Brandy also is partially just gets hammered on these shows. And when she's drunk, she's a different person. But also part of it is she likes to get under people's skin. It's a tactic of hers. I think people now in Housewives, it's not really watching human behavior anymore. I always compare it to Survivor, where they're finding different tactics to upset the other person, because then they'll get celebrated for it. And they feel like they'll be invited back to their respective Housewives show eventually, or back on another girls trip. So Brandy is rewarded for this kind of behavior. I just think then you run the risk of taking it too far, which maybe she possibly did right now. But by the time this airs, everything will have died down and we'll potentially have forgotten about this like we forget about a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, like the amnesia that we get because there's always like something that comes out,
Something
right?
else.
And then it like resurfaces on TikTok, and then we're all mad about it again for like a week, and then we're on to the next thing. Like right now, the big thing on TikTok is Michaela Nogueira and the mascara gate. Have you seen any of that playing out?
Well, now, Laura, I don't know if you're going to believe this, but it turns out I'm not the makeup guy. Like a lot of people think Ryan makeup, but what I love about TikTok is that I do get into those things, but I have not. Now that I'm saying it out loud next to my phone, I'm sure I'm going to get mascara TikToks later, but I have not. Explain mascara TikTok, because already I'm fully involved. I
mean, Ryan, you can tell me you're not wearing any makeup, but those eyelashes are looking popping today.
I was always told in high school theater that I had amazing eyelashes. That's not a joke. I was told that.
You know what? And you held on to that, and you should, as you should. Telescopic. If you're listening, L'Oreal Telescopic, Ryan wants a brand deal. So anyway, like there's this like makeup TikToker. She has like probably like 15 million followers. She's from Boston, and she did this ad for L'Oreal, and it wasn't like, I don't even know if she tagged it as an ad, but she does like the 3 coats of mascara on the camera, and like I use that mascara. It's a great mascara, but then it was kind of very clear at the end that she kind of like put like a small like little demi lash, the girls listening will know what I'm talking about, on the end of her eye, and like it was like, okay, like you're wearing a false eyelash. So then the entire internet like has been going nuts over this mascara and this like false advertising. But I think like it's crazy because people are so quick to zero in on something like that, but it's like there are a million like girlies and boys on the internet using a filter when they're shilling like teeth whitening stuff, and filters when they're doing makeup and self-tanning videos. So it's like, I don't know, we just zero in on the funniest stuff.
Wait, is Demi Lash anything to do with Demi Lovato? Like, what is a Demi Lash?
Yes, no, it's just like a type of little wispy like lash. It's a very cute one. But
so she's in trouble for essentially maybe false advertising or using a different product than what she's advertising. But the funny thing is that you're making the point of everybody kind of does this in some way. Like nobody's truthfully, I mean, like a lot of people don't tell the truth online. I hate to break that to everybody. I mean, there are people that get celebrated for being essentially themselves, but even that, I feel like, where do you go with that? Like you can stay true to yourself, but eventually it's like the algorithm. It's like you're eventually going to make some wrong misstep at some point, and then the internet does come for everybody someday. I was even looking at other people, like other podcasters and social media people that are way bigger than I am. And it seems to be this shift where if you get to a certain point, and you've noticed this on TikTok, we've had conversations where I think where you will get a good deal of hate for really bad, like people will start, you'll have majority of fans, but you'll also have a small minority of people that just genuinely don't like you no matter what you do and look for you to fail.
Yeah, and I think that the bigger people get, the more under the microscope they are, the more of this like group think in the comment section happens. And, people just want to be outraged that, she did this like thing with like a $12 mascara. And it's like, it's a good mascara on its own. So, yeah, it's crazy what people zero in on, but that's the internet now. And I think that, I mean, the one thing I will say that's great about TikTok is like sometimes like the best part of a video is the comment section, and people say the funniest stuff in the comment
Oh,
section.
that's why
So
I think TikTok, I love watching TikTok more than Reels on Instagram, because you can still watch the video while you're reading the comments. Whereas in Instagram, it stops the video, or at least mine does. But on TikTok, I can like open up the comments while I'm watching the video and kind of go through it. And yeah, the comment sections are a whole nother form of entertainment on the app. Also, I was watching some of the Tarte influencer stuff that we've talked about, you guys, where I watched this one, they all got sent to Dubai. It was like just a huge vacation that everybody was breaking down the costs and stuff, but I don't even care about that. I was watching this one makeup influencer, like all of a sudden I was watching her, and she's supposed to be really popular, and she started putting on makeup. I literally legitimately thought it was like a joke video, because she literally started like, she's a beautiful girl, and then started like putting this foundation, which it like, she was already a white girl, but it looked like she was doing white face,
no,
because she put on this
it's on her
such
lips.
heavy, like, yes, she put it everywhere on her face. And I was like, is this what makeup is? This girl was already really pretty, and then she put this, and she's considered one of the best, I was told.
Her name is like Meredith something, and her makeup always looks beautiful. But like when I see her do it, like I literally can feel my like skin itching from like the amount of like foundation I see her put on her own face. And then it's all over her lips, and then she has to like wipe it off of her lips. And yeah, there's some crazy stuff. But you know what? I have to say, like, it is so shocking. And I wonder if that is a tactic to like help her within the algorithm. Like I see even Emily Mariko, she'll have like a really weird ratio of like chips to the amount of hummus she has. And I'm like, oh yeah, but she knows everyone in the comments section is literally going to be writing about that again and again and again. Because I know when I unintentionally mess up the pronunciation of a word, which is like the most like embarrassing thing ever, like I hate it so much, like, oh, it kills me. I have people that have clearly seen the comments of me getting corrected, and I will be corrected like 800 times. And actually, that's worse than anyone coming for my appearance, my personality, anything. When I mess up a word or like, it kills me. It kills me so much.
I mean, well, the internet is like an encyclopedia, a thesaurus, your worst teacher ever. Like, it's all of that wrapped into one, because you will get immediate feedback. But also what you're kind of saying though, too, is if you want that kind of attention, like I think we have this really blurred line now of, it doesn't matter how we get the attention, good or bad, at least we have the attention. The Kardashians fall into this a lot too, where, I mean, what you were saying is like, essentially, if you want really people to go off in your comments, you could leave a couple of crumbs, like mispronouncing something, or like just to get people going. Like you would almost,
no, and I know because I've gotten the engagement for doing it unintentionally.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but people also, I think that's a fascinating idea that people have to kind of accept, even though it's scary, is that people are manipulating, and it's not the same like it used to be, where people genuinely want to be good and get attention for good things. People just want the attention.
Did you see the recent video of Brooklyn Beckham making a gin and tonic?
I'm sorry to say I haven't.
So like it was that, if you can find that video, that has the best comment section. But a part of me was like, is he trolling us? Because he's making the most basic gin and tonic. He cuts a cucumber, he cuts a lime, he's like, and then you squeeze it, like you squeeze the mint. He's like, to get the smells out. Like he didn't even say like to get like the aroma, or like, I don't know, some sort of like bartending term. And people were,
he's working class. He's working class. That's how they say it. Yeah.
They were like Nepo spice, and people were like, where does his talent begin? And like people were saying the funniest stuff. If anyone needs a laugh, go find that comment section. But yeah,
Brooklyn Beckham's fascinating because he gets roasted all the time, because he's wanting to be a chef. And so they'll roast him on every recipe he does. Like he made a roast like a couple of weeks ago, and they just said like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And it is fascinating, these kind of quote unquote Nepo babies. He's from, of course, David Beckham and Victoria Beckham. And, they're trying to find their own way, but at the same time, they're used to a spotlight because of their parents. So what they do, or what their interests are, they want fame to come along with it. it's not like he wants to work in an actual kitchen and really just study under the best. He wants to do it now. So he's going to do it online because that gets attention. It's just that a lot of the attention it gets is making fun of him.
He's getting ready to go from like 0 to Gordon Ramsay, and like it's just not translating. And the thing is, I was wondering, like, I'm like, is he trolling us? Because it was like, this is your hot take on a gin and tonic. This is just like the gin and tonic I would make in my own little kitchen, like with no bartending background ever. Like, so it's really fascinating. But yeah, I can get lost in the comments.
Yeah.
Unless they're about me, then I go hibernate.
Okay, you guys, I'm gonna move on to something, and trigger warning. We're gonna be talking about, or as TikTok likes to say it, unaliving people, which I didn't even realize why they were using the term unalive, but I didn't realize TikTok TikTok would, strike your account down for saying murder. And we're going to talk about the Idaho murders, which is a very sensitive topic. And we don't really usually do a lot of true crime on this show, but it is something that fascinated me. So hope you guys are willing to listen to it, because I'm truly fixated on this case. But I was on TikTok like 4 weeks ago, and I was searching things out because this case truly, I think a lot of it just kind of haunted me. I'll ask why you think it. I mean, true crime fascinates everyone, but this case in particular. But I saw your video about the alleged murderer, Bryan Kohberger, who, like I said, is in jail right now, and you had pointed out these eerie coincidences, these eerie things about somebody on these Facebook forums. And we'll go into the story right now, but I guess first question is, why do you think people are so fascinated with this case specifically?
I think the fascination obviously comes from, like, I think this is like everyone's worst fear, and like nobody could have seen this coming. Like, and they're these beautiful college kids who had their whole lives ahead of them. Like, the way that, I mean, and for anyone listening that hasn't looked into this, the way that he broke into their home when it was like 3-4 in the morning, when, we've all, been at that age for the most part, probably listening, where you might be in like a drunken stupor if you're 22 years old and it's 4 a.m. and you just ordered Jack in the Box, and somebody, sneaks in through your sliding door. And then, like, what's the thing that your mother always kind of felt in college? Like, if you had your guy friends with you, you were safe. Well, the guy was there in the bed with the girl, and he got killed too, because it was really just like a sneak attack. And they didn't stand a chance, in my opinion. So I think because it was creepy, because it was really creepy, and these kids had their whole lives ahead of them. And then the person wasn't found for quite some time. I think it was like 2 months. So I think people were just like out of concern that, like, what if he's going to strike again? What if he's going to hit another college near there?
Which, by the way, this small town of Idaho where this took place, is supposed to be, and somebody had written me how what a Patreon member, what a beautiful town this really is. And that's why it's even more shocking. And to your point, what you just said a second ago, is that those drunken moments that you have in college, or those drunken moments you have with your friends at like 3 a.m, where it's just silly stupidity of having a good night at a bar, having fun with your friends, and then coming back and eating shitty fast food and going through TikTok or watching whatever you watch. We've all had an experience like that. And to think that can be destroyed, or somebody's out there watching you or plotting against you, I think that is one of those things. And then it was so involved in the timeline of this stuff of like, when did these murders happen? And then, of course, when we got the what is it called? Not the report, but the information,
I think the affidavit, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The affidavit, where it went even further into why Bryan Kohberger, why they took him into custody, why all this stuff. And you found out all of these things, you guys, where his phone was pinging in that location so many times, even before the night of their murder, and even so close at times where he would pick up on the Wi-Fi signal from that house. That's how close he was, not even that night, but other times before. And also this Bryan Kohberger is a criminology PhD student. From all accounts, people have said he was a brilliant student, even though a lot of classmates or people that he TA'd for said he was also very, very weird personality, boastful at times, wanting to act like he was the smartest person in the room. Also just listen, let's just call it out. Also a very intense, creepy look. And I think maybe that's what we add on to him anyways. But I was looking at pictures of him since he was a kid. Also somebody who was 100 pounds overweight. He at one point had a heroin addiction. All of these things started coming to light where, it's so interesting. I still see stuff online where it's like, if this is going to be a hard case, it might not be him. I love that still 30% of people will always think you're innocent, like whether you're Jen Shaw or Brian Koberger.
It actually kills me. And there are so many people that I could reference for that specific example, but I have gotten trolled online with people that genuinely believe certain people who I believe are very, very guilty over and over again. And it's crazy when it extends to a very clear-cut murder case where, he turned off his cell phone to go to that location. He then, revisited the location at like 9 a.m. And, I feel really horrible for the roommate. If somebody didn't research this, one of the roommates survived and she saw him leaving and she was actually able to help the police identify him because he had these really bushy eyebrows.
Bushy eyebrows, which you can see in any picture of him. He has bushy eyebrows.
Yeah. But other than that, he was completely covered in all black because he was trying to avoid leaving behind DNA, which he was ultimately found on the sheath of the knife that he left behind.
Yeah, the button, like he had a knife, you guys it's a USMC knife, I believe.
Yeah,
a K-bar, and there was a sheath, and there was a drop of blood on the snap button, and they were able to pull DNA from that.
And so what he was doing in addition, like 4 days before the police, I think, arrested him, he was removing all of the garbage from his home and placing it in the neighbor's garbage using gloves. So it's like, you're going to tell me.
And it wasn't at like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. It was really
at odd hours because
he
was trying to cover his tracks in case anyone was onto him. As a criminology student, he obviously knew some things, but not enough to get away with this. And also I feel like we're in a time where maybe you get away with doing this once, but we have enough science going on. It's not the days of yore when I was telling you a little bit before this, before we started recording, that my professor in college worked with Ted Bundy on death row. And I think that for a lot of people that either knew about Ted Bundy or were alive when Ted Bundy was, at large, because of what Ted Bundy did at a college, because Ted Bundy went after sorority girls too, I believe. It reminded people of that. It was like this scary break-in at a college where people are just bludgeoned, and it's just absolutely terrible. But now thankfully we have we're so much more advanced that I feel like it makes it harder for people to get away with something like this. And thank God. It's just a shame that it had to even happen once. I wish they would have caught him plotting to do this and arrested him, but also it's weird. I mean, the police, they looked like they were dragging their feet and they didn't have any leads, when all the while they did actually have Brian in sights, but they also wanted to line up the case because they knew they were going to have to take this to trial eventually, if he wasn't going to admit things. So it's like, in today's society, you have these defense lawyers, and I've read so many defense lawyers of how Brian can pull out of this and, not be found guilty. And it's shocking because you're just like, this is disgusting. To me, this is such a clear case. Even in the affidavit we're talking about, you guys, his phone was on near that location at 3 something in the morning. And then during the alleged times of the actual killings, the phone went into airplane mode. You have to switch it to airplane mode. So the phone, so he thought he was being smart. He thought, okay, my phone will not be pinged. I'm shocked he just didn't get a burner phone and leave his actual phone at the place on, but he turned it to airplane mode, and then the airplane mode got switched back on, or switched back off, an hour and a half after the killings, I believe, which is just right then and there. How are you going to explain that away? How are you which of you guys flip your phones to airplane mode just randomly on a night, just randomly in the middle of the night, flip your phone to airplane mode? Well, and then he's back around the house at 9 a.m. And my theory is he realized, oh shoot, I left the knife sheath, and that's what's going to bury me. And so the TikToks that Ryan was referencing before, I was sick during New Year's, like the January 1st. And that's usually when I do my digging, because I'm like stuck in the room. And that's when it's like Shakespeare mode. It's like when I do my best work is like when I'm deathly ill.
Yeah.
He was during the plague. I was during my own little plague. But literally, like I was like scanning Reddit and I was scanning Facebook and I was scanning all these different things. And I found this Facebook group. And so there were like, I think like something like 70,000 people in this Facebook group regarding the Idaho murders. And people were just like, talking about different information and motive and like all these different things. So there was this account called Papa Roger. And there was this
a Facebook account, right?
On this Facebook account called Papa Roger. And it was created a little bit after the murders and it joined the group. And it had this AI person that actually like looked like an AI version of Brian Koberger.
Yeah, you guys, it's Brian. It what looks like Brian Koberg from the side view, and it has some kind of military hat on, and it's really interesting because it is an AI thing, and we've been talking about AI on this podcast, but also with what Facetune, they printed me out or sent me a bunch of AI images of myself, and this was an AI image, and all you use to generate those AI images is an image of yourself. So this image looked like Brian Koberger.
I dug deeper and like it was this World War II AI that somebody created, but I think he selected it because it looked like him. That's my personal opinion. And so the really crazy thing is the person was being very strange on the Facebook group, being like saying the weirdest things. And the one thing that they kept on bringing up is, I think that the killer left behind the knife sheath over and over and over again. And then we find out that he, in fact, did leave behind the knife sheath. And then a day after he was caught, that Facebook page was deleted. And what I've noticed, being somebody that like follows true crime, when people get arrested for murder, within 24 hours, their social media disappears. So I'm even working on some other true crime projects where I know this, and I went and screenshotted every single image on that person's Facebook that will probably be used in some sort of media in the future. But the police or the families are encouraged to scrub it. I don't know which it is, if like law enforcement removes it because there's evidence on social, and they remove it for that reason within that 24-hour period of arresting someone, or if they encourage the families to do so that people can't trace it back to them and they're not going to be harassed. I don't know which it is, but I've noticed the pattern because I absolutely, every time somebody gets caught for a murder, go on Facebook and like, were there any clues on their Facebook?
Yeah.
Like, and
so like this Papa Rogers account, it got deleted, and he, not made a comment on any forum since the arrest of Brian Koberger.
Yeah.
So what's fascinating too is that can't Meta or Instagram or Facebook, or Meta, the company that owns both of those, they will have that information. They will have IP addresses. They could tie that directly to Brian Koberger, which I would imagine when this case comes to trial, we'll get. And by the way, there is a strict gag order on anybody involved in this case, which I think is very smart, even though it kind of shuts down a lot of TikTok accounts and a lot of things like this that are trying to grasp for these straws, which by the way, I love your story on this, but then I'll go looking for Idaho murder stuff on TikTok, and there's like a couple of just annoying accounts that literally the account is breaking news. And I'm going to read you 2 pieces of information from this article that I just read. And it's like, that's not digging. That's not breaking news. That's not anything. And it's like also, almost trying to put
people died here. Okay. Like, yeah. And some people are so flippant about it. And I always try to think like, if like the person's family saw this, like, would I like be able to live with myself? And like, the answer always has to be yes before I'm going to post something. But like, I see these people that also have these like true crime accounts where I'm like, and this episode was brought to you by L'Oreal Paris. Like, it's like, I'm like, oh my God. And I get that like, there's a whole niche of true crime, but some people do it, I think, are so desensitized to the topic that they do it in such a flippant way. Whereas I feel like my TikTok is kind of like me venting to the internet about some information that I just found that I'm like, I need like a forum of people to like, just like vent to about it. Versus
no, it's like, that is the thing, is that you do have to remember, for kids, got unalived that night. And it was a horrific tragedy because they seemed like good people that had their whole lives ahead of them. And you're right. That is one of those things that is fascinating, because when you have that kind of innocence and they look so happy, even in the picture they took that morning with all four of them, out on the patio, they just looked like it was the picture you want in college, it was that picture with your friends where you're all smiling and happy. And then, so also just to go back to the Facebook comments from this Papa Rogers, you were talking about the sheath. I mean, people were literally arguing with this guy of like, why the fuck do you think he has a sheath? That would be the dumbest move ever. Like, they're arguing with him. And this guy was like
fully arguing with the killer. Like, I'm like, he was fully like, you're wrong. And the guy's like, you want to know how I know I'm right? Like, I felt like that's what was really happening. And it was actually crazy. And then the Papa Roger account posted this really creepy photo of the house, and in red writing was literally labeling the rooms to like such a high degree. And it was so creepy. And people started saying to him, you sound like a psychopath. Like, you sound like you're a serial killer. And like, lo and behold, like, they say that, like, I've heard before that like people that commit crimes, like, they end up at the funeral, or they end up like kind of like circling the crime. And it's this weird, like, psychological thing where they are like just insane.
They come back to the scene.
And he did at 9 in the morning.
Yeah, there is this element. And then he went to a grocery store, you guys. And also, like, I mean, there are things at his house. They found stains on his bed sheets. There's animal hair found, which they think potentially could be the dog that was there at the house. There's all of these little things, and they gave us these little nuggets of information, and they did black out like a whole page, right, of the affidavit.
And I'm not sure why, but I think that like all of this will come to light I think in the summers when they're going to start like unpacking all this. But even like, people were like speculating on how he might have gotten to like figure out who these girls were. And I guess he was super vegan to the point of like making his parents get new pots and pans. And then the girls worked at a like Greek vegan restaurant. And
the Mad Greek. Yeah.
And then the other weird thing about this Papa Roger account is there was this incel murderer. Like, so if you don't know what an incel is, it's an involuntary celibate person. And there's like all these incel forums. Like,
involuntary celibate. Yeah. So it's like men that can't get sex. And so they're called incels now, you guys. You guys probably already know this, but it's a really weird type of man that almost thinks that they can take things from women, and they almost view women as these things that they're not able to get. So they start to, treat them differently, look at women differently. It's really psychotic in a whole different way, even without murder being involved.
Absolutely. And I think it's like led to like violence towards women from some of these people. And so there was this guy, I think his last or first name was Roger, that was like very well known in the incel community for like committing, I think, a murder against a woman in a sorority. And so people are saying, oh, Papa Roger, that I think his name was like Elliot Roger. People thought he might be mirroring that by committing this crime. And the Papa Roger Facebook account kept on saying, I think that the crime was sexually motivated, over and over and over again. So I'm sure we'll find out in the summer if this was him. I very much think it is. There's like a lot of online conspiracy theories around these things that I don't believe, but because of the knife.
Yeah, you guys,
I'm like, that's
well, that's the thing that's scary, is as much as good information you can get from the internet, you also get all of these things of like, I read all these rumors. Oh, there was a drug dealer and they were this, and there was like a second person that was involved in the murders as well. And it's like, you gotta really, really be careful. It's like, it's 8 billion times worse than some stupid Bravo rumor, because it really involves these real people. And we're trying to actually put the right person behind the bars, and we don't want to pollute the case at all. And it's just when they have this kind of demand and this many eyes on something, it's one of those things where I can't imagine what it's like to be that police force, because I mean, I just think about when I had a normal job, how many times I screwed up in my normal job, and thankfully it was just at an acting studio. But like, could you imagine if you're like just well, man, I was a little hungover going into work and I just made mistakes processing a fingerprint. Even when they had got the white car that Brian Koberger drove and they had all this information on, it took them a while to even piece it together to Brian, because I believe they had the wrong year, or they'd even put out the wrong year to the public. So a lot of people didn't think it was Brian's car, because Brian's car was like a 2015 and they were looking for a 2013, I think.
Yeah. And listen, it must be really hard to be in law enforcement. And then of course, all the public pressure, trying to figure out a case like this. But I mean, I think like, it's like, okay, like what can you take away from this? Because I think people follow these things to be like, if there was a murderer around me, would I know it? Like, or something like that. I think that's like a little bit of where some interest comes in it. But one of the takeaways is like, okay, he probably broke in through their sliding door. If you have a sliding door and it's exposed to where anyone could get in, even just for theft purposes, you need to go to Home Depot, you need to get a piece of wood cut, and you need to have that piece of wood in there every night and every time you leave the house. I was always really adamant about this. And like at the very, like the lowest level of something that could happen to you on a college campus, there are a lot of people that know that college kids have laptops, and my entire neighborhood got laptops stolen except for my house, because we had those wooden pieces of wood cut in our windows and our sliding door. And somebody on TikTok, whose name is like Killer Bee Tactical, and he like does all this defense stuff, but he showed how easy it was to pop a sliding door open just using a screwdriver. And he was saying that he thinks that is how he got in, unless the door was like already open. But just like, that's something that like, okay, like these people's lives don't have to be in vain, because maybe that's something that more people can do for their college kids to keep them safe from theft and for God forbid somebody breaking in. But it was really interesting, Ryan. In college, I studied psychology. One of my professors worked on death row with Ted Bundy. He was there with him until the electric chair. And a lot of people are like, how did he tell you anything about it? There's HIPAA laws. HIPAA was enacted in 1996 and Ted Bundy died in 1989. So I don't know how much this professor was really supposed to share with us, but he told us a lot. And
so what was he working with? He was working with him on his story.
Social worker. So he was a social worker. Okay. So he, was like kind of, I guess to a degree, doing kind of like talk therapy with him and like meeting with him before he was going to get the electric chair. And so this was over the span of a few years that Ted Bundy was in jail. And, I was morbidly curious, because I was like, okay, like this guy, from all accounts, it seems like it was really hard to determine that he was doing these things. And like, even like, I remember hearing a story about him walking one of his colleagues to her car because there was a crazy man on the loose, and like, oh, it was actually him. So it's like, I don't know, like, how do you know if the bad guy's the bad guy? I want to know as a woman, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. And did you guys ever read that? I think her name's Anna Rule, that book about, she worked with Ted Bundy. Anne Rule, and it's called The Stranger Beside Me. And I read this book like 10 years ago, but she worked with Ted Bundy. She went on to be kind of a huge author as well, but she wrote this book about their relationship. And, it was this kind of really normal relationship that they had. But this Ted Bundy, and I want to get back to more about your professor and all that in a sec, but just to relate it to Brian Koberger, is a lot of people are saying, well, what's missing here is motive. And there's that like kind of thin thing about like, well, he was vegan, he might've bumped into them. He was Instagramming, DMing one of them without any kind of replies back, supposedly. This is all alleged. With serial killers, though, you guys, you don't need to have a motive. Serial killers don't like, they'll pick out certain people like BTK or something like that. But a lot of the times Ted Bundy would kill random people. He would go into a sorority and kill random people without planning. And that's part of the sickness. And if you then kind of let your mind do a little wandering about a criminology student, about somebody that's been bullied, somebody that's not been given the attention by females, or, somebody that actually from their own admission and their own writing on blogs says that they're emotionless. They don't feel emotion the way other people do. If you read some of his past blogs and stuff like that, that have been discovered. So motive to me doesn't really matter as much as all of the other evidence, because a serial killer doesn't think like us. It doesn't think of like, well, I really dislike this person and that's why I will murder them. Like sometimes, yeah, but this, like, I just don't think motive in this kind of day and age, it holds the weight that people are wanting it to hold to potentially get this guy off, if that makes
Or
sense.
it's not going to be a motive that any person that is not in that headspace could ever even envision or imagine.
Yeah.
Like it would be impossible for us to get inside a brain like that, and what my professor told us was that like Ted Bundy would get these like detective magazines with like busty women, but they were like covered in blood because it was like a
Yeah.
detective like crime, like,
Yep.
cartoon type thing. And he would like get off to that. And like that was his thing, and his parents were perfectly normal, and like it seems like Brian Koberger's family from all accounts is perfectly normal. And it's like this whole like nature nurture discussion that people get into, and it's like, yeah, I guess he was kind of just hiding in plain sight, and seems like he was like kind of
We're
alone.
also, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and people build up to things like, hopefully this was his first attempt. If this is in fact Brian Koberger, hopefully there isn't something that you find out before this, that there was another victim somewhere earlier. Hopefully this was the first time. And, and also one of the Papa Rogers comments, they're arguing with him back and forth and saying like, well, why do you think he could have left this? Or why, and it was like very, very excited. He was saying it's like, well, the person obviously was very excited doing this. It took a lot of energy in talking about why they killed all four of them. There was a lot of like this Papa Roger stuff was truly fascinating. What else did your professor say about Ted Bundy? Like, do you remember if he said anything about how his demeanor was towards him?
He said he was like perfectly normal. And that was like the weirdest part. And my professor, Ted Bundy had a conjugal visit woman that had a baby with him. And Ted Bundy.
Wait, what? Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Ted Bundy has a daughter
that he had while he was in prison.
Visit woman, and they got a common law wedding somehow, like in a court, like they were in court together because of something Ted did, and like somehow got like married on the spot. I have to like look up the story.
Wait. Why are they allowed? Like, this is what I don't get, man. Like I get like, there's a lot of people falsely imprisoned, and like I really, but like, why is a serial killer ever getting a conjugal visit?
Yeah, I know. It's like, you don't deserve to get laid. No offense.
Well, I hate to sound like people are going to be like, you're inhumane towards serial killers, but like, that shocks me. Like
you never like with anyone ever again. No, I know it was crazy. And he had a daughter. So the Ted set my professor up with his daughter's kindergarten teacher from inside of jail. And even was giving my teacher tips on how to pick up women from inside of jail. And my professor was the person after Ted got the electric chair that brought his belongings to Ted Bundy's family. Like he held on to them and then gave them to the parents. So
wait. Did you say your professor set Ted Bundy up with somebody?
No, Ted Bundy set my professor up with his conjugal visit daughter's kindergarten teacher. But he was such a master manipulator that he was like arranging this to happen from jail with the woman that he had, you know what I mean? Like, and trying to set him up.
Guys, the other thing about Ted Bundy is that if you look at him, like a really good looking man, I think for that time period, and also very charismatic.
In fact, a lot now, like all the boys have
now it's gross. Yeah. No, everybody looks like Craig from Southern Charm now. No, but like he was so charming that even like, some of his cases, were almost comical in a way, because he would be like, no, I didn't do it. Like he found these ways, and he escaped a couple of times from, once he was captured, he actually escaped. It's like, it's really weirdly madcap, his whole story. And you have to remember how violent these actual crimes were, because you run that risk of almost glamorizing, of almost kind of like, oh, funny old Ted, and like he is this real person that's sick underneath.
Because I did not want to see Zac Efron playing dead.
Yeah, Netflix movie. Yeah,
I didn't really want to see Jeffrey Dahmer having a documentary, and I
a documentary. They had a fucking series. Show. It was one of the most streamed television shows of 2022.
I feel like we can decipher like true crime from like the perspective of the psychology and like, the family being talking heads and like just telling the story and like shining a light on how wonderful the people that were victims were. But like when it's like Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy, that's when I get pissed off because I'm like, no, fuck that. Like make him played by like Jonah Hill or something. Like no offense, Jonah, but like, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna have to do it, make it played by like somebody horrible. Like I'm like,
I think after the Dahmer thing, I was just so like, I really couldn't get through that show. And then I really started questioning, why does this show even exist? And I've talked to the audience so much about this because I was like, and by the way, it exists because so many people streamed it and watched it and devoured it. And I'm like, which is a horrible word for that, but like, well, no, it's just like, but it's like, why are we, like somewhere, if Brian Koberger did do these things, like I don't want part of anything to be like, well, I hope I'm alive when my TV series on Netflix comes out. You don't want him to get, because at the same time, like, I don't want to empathize with a serial killer. I don't want like, sorry that, they're going to try to show us like how Ted or how Dahmer became Dahmer. I don't care. I care about those victims.
Go through abuse in their childhood and don't become serial killers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, and that's the thing is like these like shows attempt to like humanize them. And I'm like, I don't know. They don't get a redemption arc. Like,
no, but they do because people eat this shit up. And by the way, just like me, I was out there on TikTok looking for these facts about Brian Koberger. I was looking for these things.
But we were just piece horrified, of information. And we were just, as a nation, we were horrified. And it's sad because, having talked about true crime on my channel a lot, there are a lot of like disenfranchised people that don't get the attention that like beautiful college kids do. And I actually like, one family reached out to me and the daughter had some issues with drugs and she was found dead in LA. And I'm not sure that I've seen anything with the police actually like figuring out what happened to her, but her body was found and some of her belongings were found in a homeless encampment when they were cleaning up the homeless encampments in Venice. And her body unfortunately was found in a creek over here. And because she wasn't necessarily the picture of, perfection because she maybe was involved in some, unsavory quote, air quotes things. She wasn't as looked for. I have another friend who I've, chatted with a lot on social media and I've done stories on her mother, but her mother's an Alaskan native and her mother went missing, I think 3 years ago on Valentine's Day. And, the efforts to like find her weren't so great. And, you're in Alaska and the police force is like really just like very pared down compared to what it might be in like a major city or like, more of a suburb of like New York City or something. So yeah, it's really crazy. When one of the craziest things that's come out of sharing some of these bigger stories is the people that reach out that are like, I'm looking for a family member. Another woman, I've talked to her on the phone a bunch. Her daughter, has been missing for a while and she just like left one night from a family member's house in Florida and like has never been seen again. And though like, she hasn't been able to get the help that she needed, she wasn't considered missing for a really long time. So it's crazy how we zero in on certain cases, but then you don't realize like there are a lot of like unsolved
Yeah. I mean, it's really, really frightening. And I hate to get into that conversation of like, well, these kids are just really great looking and that's why we got to like, no, it's like, no,
I'm glad they got that attention. And I'm glad Gabby Petito got that attention. I'm glad for any family whose children gets that attention. It's just, it never occurred to me how much people have like missing people in their lives that like aren't necessarily like, I thought it was like major news every time it happened. Like, and that was like, obviously like a really like, naive perspective, but I'm like, this can't be happening that much. Like, like, come on, there's only like, how many like sharks in the water can there be? There's probably only like, 4 crazy.
Because we don't want to believe that there's evil around us. We don't want to, we're that's scary. And I think that's also why it's fascinating because you're like, well, I don't think I'm inherently evil. I mean, I do some shitty things, but it's nowhere near this kind of, so what kind of person does it take to do that? And I think there is like, where do you go from there? Like, and it's this weird, anyways, as we wind down here, one more thing about the Papa Rogers thing too, is there was a part of it. I don't know if this was connected to Papa Rogers, but there was also these shows where allegedly they believe Brian Koberger called in and was actually talking about the case. And, it was like a call-in streaming show about this case.
Yeah.
A radio show.
Yeah. That went all over the internet. And he was saying that, he heard that, he was like, well, I did hear some, frat boys saying that,
Oh yeah.
how would you kill someone? And the guy was like, you heard people saying this? Like, why haven't you like reported them to the police? And he was like, well, it's just like, like locker room talk basically. And like, but what happened was this girl went on TikTok and she actually knew Brian from growing up.
Brian, yeah.
And she and her brother were like, that was his voice. So who knows?
So and they will always say this though, like you said, these murderers will go to the scene of the crime, and they're also at a certain point, they're proud of their work. They want to be part of, and they want to actually mislead. So, he was calling into this thing, and if it was Brian Koberger, he was saying, hey, look over at those fraternity guys. I heard things over there, almost trying to sway people in a different direction, because if you can cast doubt, then more stuff can get pulled away from Brian. And all you need is because, without a shadow of a doubt, that's what they need to convict him, like there cannot be any doubt in his conviction. And also, they do impose, the death penalty is on the table if Brian is convicted for this. So he did waive his right to a speedy trial. And so I guess the criminal trial starts in June. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's June. I'm pretty sure. I know it's this summer, and I believe it's in June. So I think this will go quiet for a while, and then we'll probably have a ton of new information in June, because it's crazy like how things happen with all this. It's like there's like on the onset you get so much information, all this stuff comes out, and then I'm sure in June we'll all be like removing our jaws from the floor, and there's going to be so much more evidence that they've found. And I just feel horrible for those families and those like anyone who was at that school. And I really, really, really feel bad for the roommate who is probably dealing with survivor's guilt that, is going to
because in the affidavit, like you said, she came out and saw him, and we still really don't know. And the other thing that people keep hitting over the head is that, like, they waited until noon the next day, and we don't know exactly, but that was when the police were finally called. But you just don't know. Like, if you see this stuff, like, who knows if she thought he was the killer then and there? Who knows what she thought was happening? Like,
why would you think like your roommates got killed? You know what I mean? And like in college, I feel like there's always yelling, and there's always like,
well, they were having parties there a lot. They were having like random, I don't know. There's just a string of things it could be. So
I think like I was like the kind of roommate where like I loved having parties. I loved having people over. But then what I didn't love was like the stragglers or like the random guys being around after the parties. And I would get like a little sensitive about that, where like if I heard somebody outside of my door, it would kind of freak me out. Or if I saw somebody walking down my stairs into my roommate's room and I didn't know them at like an ungodly hour, that would be like kind of sketchy to me if it was like a leftover person from a party, unless they were somebody that we actually knew. So I could even see this person being like, I heard some noises, and I see this guy coming downstairs, but maybe at a party there was a leftover person that was actually a friend, and she overreacted once.
And he was wearing a mask. He was wearing a mask, but you guys also like think about it. In the last couple of years, masks have gone, more prominent just because of COVID and things like that. Like it's not. Like
she
you can paint anything in each way.
She might have just smoked a bunch of weed and like,
Well, that's the other thing too. People like, what if, if you're on a Saturday night, these people, some of these kids were coming home drunk from a bar with like, or maybe who knows, but like, if it was me, I would be coming home drunk from a bar.
Yeah,
and too. Like if you're smoking weed, you're not looking to get into a conversation with some stranger in your house. You're not looking, you're looking to be in your safe bubble.
At 3 a.m. after some drinks, maybe you're a little stoned, you see something outside of your door and you're like, I couldn't have possibly just seen that. Like, oh my God, I'm so freaked out. I'm going to shut the door and like go in my closet and like just be freaked out alone. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to wake up and find out it was like a figment of my imagination. Like, anyway, I think it's crazy because she survived. The online forums have been like crazy towards her. And I think it's gotten better, but I just feel so bad for that girl.
But also, even without the stupid people attacking her for like calling when they did or whatever, we still don't know the full story. But also imagine even taking that all aside, like what they're going through of like being in that same house and then still being alive the next day, like the guilt you have to feel, and also the fear. Like imagine that's going to stay with you there. I mean, if you watch any kind of true crime stuff, the people that do survive, they are left with this kind of overwhelming survivor's guilt. And, then to throw TikTok TikTok comments and all of that stuff on it. If you, and by the way, these are college kids that eat up TikTok. I'm sure she's on it nonstop, or was on it nonstop, and seeing all of these horrific things where it's like, did anybody look at the roommate? They probably have something to do with it. Like, wouldn't that be horrible?
Well, there was even a girl that was in litigation now because she was blaming a college professor because she was a tarot card reader. And I'm like, people
Yes, she was on TikTok, you guys. She was on TikTok, and she said, I know for a fact that it's this teacher working in, and like now the teacher
you were
is
in the
suing
faculty
her.
and somebody like went through the faculty list and randomly selected you based on their psychic ability and tarot cards, and you're getting like this barrage of like people that probably believe this tarot card reader. But now there's like going to be like a lawsuit because I'm sure the woman was harassed left, right, and center. And it's like, why would this woman this woman like as a suspect didn't even make sense. I'm like, it was so bizarre. And I mean, that's like some of the issue with the online discourse and the web sleuthing. And it's like, A and B can look like they're related, but like if A, and B might not actually be related. And like two things, can look like they're a theory or something, and like you're wrong. And so it's always just good, I think, for the most part, to like read the online forums, take it with a grain of salt, and then let law enforcement do their job and get the bad guys. They don't get it right every time.
Knock on wood. Yeah, they don't get it
right every time, but
I mean, these 4 victims, hopefully they deserve some sort of justice, and hopefully they will get it, and we'll fall. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this because I've really been thinking about this over the last month, and I'm really kind of glad it's died down. And I don't think this is going to stoke things up or something, but I wanted to talk about it because I talk about on this show what I pay attention to. And this was something that I was really paying attention to. And I was also just kind of horrified with how much evidence seems to be pointing towards this guy. And I would still read in all these comments of like, it's not an open and shut case. And I'm like, well, then our system is potentially broken. Like, it's like, if then I don't know what to say.
Literally, like, I've never felt like, and again, like, I know, like, we have to let the court of, law do its job, but like from the court of public opinion over here, I think it is pretty obvious when you are removing garbage and putting it in your neighbor's garbage with gloves on at 4 a.m. and like there's just, it's a little bit.
Wait, to be honest with you, Lauren, the only time I've done that is when my recycling has become full of Amazon boxes, and sometimes I will go over and like put it in there, but it's nothing to do with like killing. It's just like my garbage is full, but like obviously I'm not wearing gloves.
This is how you're gonna get framed. This is how you're gonna get framed.
Oh no!
This is how you're gonna frame. I saw something on the internet. It was like a meme maybe, or like did you post it? I don't know. Somebody posted that their like niece or something wanted to do locks of love, but she's like, but if the person I give the locks to commits a crime, what can I be like held accountable for it, like with the like hair that they have that's mine?
Like, oh my god, yes, the DNA from the hair. I mean, that's
right.
See, and then if we get Chat GPT involved in AI, where AI is like, I think just one update away from murdering,
stealing my identity.
Like, that's like yes, yeah. AI is going to start using my shitty identity. Lauren, you did it again. This went so fast, and it was so easy, as it always is, talking to you. What is coming up for you? I know we were talking beforehand. I love John Joseph, who you work with a lot as well. And I know you guys have something on the horizon, which I'll just tease, and I'll let you guys know when it comes out what they're involved in. But what else is going on? How do we support? We can follow you where?
So you can follow me at the Zen Blonde on Instagram and TikTok. And yeah, I have a really exciting project coming out with John Joseph, and that's really the biggest thing on the horizon. But other than that, I make Ryan Bailey disappear.
I don't know what happened. By the way, that's AI like totally messing with my video right now. That's
Lisa Rinna has entered the chat. She's hijacked.
I just hope Lisa Rinna, nothing ever happens to her, because I will be a suspect at some point. Like, I'm talking robberies. I'm talking like, I'm not even talking about like, I'm just talking about anything bad that ever happens to Lisa Rinna. I will be a suspect.
Like, you will literally, and then they're going to go to your house and they will find your web with the yarn. And then they're going to be like, it was definitely him. And then that's going to
this guy's a freak. This guy has a painting of Tom Girardi and his brothers, and it's fucking, this guy's a freak.
Don't worry, Ryan. I will vouch for you. that you totally did it. No, just kidding.
This
But
TikToker vouches for him, but this TikToker is weird too. We were
she's a
combing through her
weirdo,
stuff.
and then
a
I
lot
get
of,
implicated.
A lot of
and
weird stories.
They're in cahoots.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Anyway, just find me on the Zen Blonde. There's lots coming out, but for now, that's where I'm at. I'm just crawling out of dry January and just re-entering the world. So thank you so much for
But
having
everybody
me.
forget out there, she didn't really do dry January. She gave up this weekend. So that's not really, we can't really count that, but congratulations for whatever you did for
Thank
these
you so
27
much.
days.
Thank you. Pride in my work.
I'll talk to you next time.
All right. Bye, Ryan.
Bye.